long does it take you to change a flat tire? I'll tell you. First, you got to stop the car, get out, walk around, see that flat tire, swear at it, go rummaging in the trunk, you know, and if you're lucky and experienced, you're going to get out of there in 15, 20 minutes, but it could take a lot longer. So how long does it take a NASCAR pit crew to change 4 tires on a car? About 20 seconds.
Say 15, 20 seconds.
Yeah. Now when that car comes rolling into the pit, you don't see the pit boss go, oh, what have we got here? Looks like you need some tires on that thing. Hey, you guys, go get some tires back there, bring them up here, okay? That's not how they roll, right? They know that a pit stop is coming up. They organize the resources around that, and they choreograph all the actions for speed and reliability. And that's exactly what you ought to be doing with your monthly cash flow process. Most of us, because you know, while the pit crew knows what's coming up at them, you know that you're going to be paying bills, spending a bunch of money, hopefully putting some money away every month. Now, there is a challenge. Of course, there's a lot of variability in your cash flow, and we'll talk about that. But the bigger challenge is kind of our attitude toward it, because we think of the money coming in and that cash flow process, that's just life. And so we're kind of informal about it, and we just kind of deal with it as it goes, as it comes in and as it goes out, and we just kind of deal with it as we go along. It's just life, right? So let me show you how that kind of tends to play out, okay? So I just got paid, and I'm going to get paid again in 2 weeks. And so I've got to make the paycheck last for the next 2 weeks, but I got to remember that there is, I got to hold back half of that paycheck because I'm going to make a big rent payment at the end of the month. So this paycheck, next paycheck, we'll get the rent covered. I'm going to hold that back. So now I've got 4 bills that I got to pay in the next 2 weeks. The first bill, I look at the checking account and I see there's enough money in there I can pay that bill, so we're good. And then when this paycheck hits, there'll be enough money in the account I can pay the next 2 bills, so that's great. Unfortunately, the 4th paycheck is a credit card, and it's a monster. I mean, there's the $10,000 that we keep rolling over month to month. There's nothing I can do about that now. But the real problem is that all of the new charges and the interest accrued for the past month, that all adds up to more than what I've got. So I'm going to have to make a partial payment on that credit card, but I also need some money to live on for the next 2 weeks. So I gotta, let's see, I'm gonna have, I'm gonna put gas in the car, I'm gonna need groceries, got some date nights. So I'm gonna have to figure out how much all that's gonna spend so I can figure out how much money I can put to the credit card on that partial payment. And as I think about, I mean, why is there so much new stuff on that credit card anyway? I mean, I know I didn't put it there. Hey, babe. What did you do with that credit card? Why did you put all that stuff on there? You know that we don't have the money for that. Chances are that's not going to be a relationship affirming conversation. In fact, here's a flow chart of the process that I just went through. It's not a process, it's juggling. It's not a process, it's a circus act. Okay, and even if we manage not to drop something in the process and we actually get it all done right, it just takes too much time and it's too much energy, and it's not conducive to like any kind of constructive communication. And at the end of the month, we still usually come out of there feeling pretty guilty and pretty worried. And of course, people do try to do a better job of this. They'll create a much more detailed plan. They'll resolve to be more disciplined. But all of those good intentions usually pretty well collapse in their own weight pretty quickly. And I'll tell you, willpower and discipline, those are very finite resources. They're easily overwhelmed when there's a lot of stuff going on in your life. So what I'm going to show you today is that in fact the problem is not that we are insufficient to the task. The problem is that, you know, like we don't have the intelligence and we don't have the wherewithal to do what needs to be done. We do. The problem is that we don't organize it for sustainable success. That's the problem. Okay, we kind of treat our monthly cash flow process as if we just had an unexpected flat on the interstate. You know, that's how prepared we are. The reality is that we tend to react to the flow of events instead of proactively managing that flow, proactively controlling that flow. Okay, so instead of reacting to the flow of events, we want to proactively shape that flow. Let me show you what I mean here. This is your cash balance in your checking account over the course of a month. And the upticks, those are the times when the paychecks come in, right? It's money in. This, you're probably getting paid every other week, and this is one of those magic months when you got 3 paychecks in the month. When the paycheck comes in, then you start spending it down, of course. And a lot of times we go into the red a little bit because we know there's another paycheck coming, so it's okay, we can kind of finesse it, or we might even put something on the credit card. Okay? That level of redness and the amount of up and down on it is a really good proxy for how much drama and stress it takes to manage it. All right? But that's pretty much real life. Compare that to this picture. There's no juggling in this picture. And what I've done is I've taken all of your income and I've consolidated it into one big cash pile, and it's available at the beginning of the month. Now, I know you're not paid that way. We'll talk about that. But if you've got all that money piled up that you need for the month up at the beginning, then you spend it down, and you can spend it down with total confidence because you know it's there. As long as you're spending within the parameters of what you already know you've got to spend, you don't need to go figure out, well, when's the next check coming in, and what do I do? You just spend it down with confidence. Here's kind of the silver bullet for what we're doing today. Gracefully managing your monthly cash flow process. It's not about managing it more intensely. It's about smoothing it out to make it easier to manage. So it's not about managing it more intensely. It's smoothing it out to make it easier to manage. And I'm going to show you what that means, but I do got to warn you, this doesn't work for everybody. If you're in distress because your debts are eating you alive, or if you just don't have enough income to manage to cover your basic expenses, then you really are in that mode where you need to carefully watch every transaction and frankly do a lot of juggling. But you're still going to want to aspire to get yourself to a point where you can have a smooth flow like this. Okay, so smoothing out the flow is a key thing we need to do, and we have a key tool that we use to smooth out our flows. It comes from the engineering world, and it's called a reservoir. If this were a city's water supply, then the inputs would be rainfall. And rainfall is very variable, but because we're collecting it all in a pool, it carries us through even if we have periods when there is no rainfall. And by the same token, the demand out of it could vary quite a lot too. But because we're drawing from a big pool, we can handle those demand spikes, those demand variations. So we're going to store up the inputs, smooth out, buffer out the outputs, right? We use the same concept in our cash flow. And the first place we're going to do it is on our income. So now, let's talk a minute about your income. You could be getting paid every other week or every week. Those paychecks may land on different dates of the month every month. You could be getting paid different amounts with every paycheck. So there is tremendous possible variation in the way the money comes in. However, doesn't really matter. We always can smooth it out, okay? And we can do that because we're going to put all the money into a checking account, a standard reservoir, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to calculate a conservative monthly average income that's going to be our income that we're going to use month after month. And I can calculate that no matter how variable your income is. If you're paid the same thing every month, it's simple. It's how much are you paid every month. If you're paid only, a widely varying amount, we're still going to average that out, and then we'll make it a very conservative number, right? I'll tell you what, my mother lives off of farm income, and she gets paid twice a year, and they're very radically different checks when they come in. So she's saving for months. but then she's able to then turn that into a standard monthly income. And we're going to do the same thing. So you're going to start living on a fixed income. It's not a bad word. I mean, people are like, I'm on a fixed income. Fixed income is good. It's good. We're just going to create it. You're creating it for yourself. Okay? And then the second thing you're going to do, once you've calculated that average, is you're actually going to save up enough money, accumulate enough funds to allow you, based on whatever you're making, to allow you to go ahead and pump that thing up full for the first day of the month. So that you can, if we're going to start your program on August, then August 1st, I want all of your income in there on the very first day. Then what's going to happen, we'll be able to draw it down then, right? And then what's going to happen is in the background, paychecks are going to come in, but they're just there to refill the thing for next month. They actually are totally irrelevant to what we're doing this month. So again, I'm not sweating out when's the next paycheck coming in, how much is it going to be. That's irrelevant to what I got to do. That's just filling up the reservoir for next month or the next time period, depending what period we're working with, right? The cool thing that we're doing here is a couple cool things. First off, with this, your income ends up running a month ahead of your expenses. So now, when I talk about getting proactive, now you're getting proactive. You're a month ahead. You know, or you can view it as a 1-month emergency fund. But the other cool thing we're doing, if you step back, is we're shifting from a paycheck cycle kind of mindset to a monthly cycle mindset. And monthly is how your bills work. So get out of worrying about paycheck cycles, move to a monthly mindset. Okay, now when you've got this standard income and it's sitting there in the reservoir for you, you're obviously going to need to match it up to the outputs, and that's all your spending and saving throughout the month, right? And you've got to bring that into alignment. And this is, of course, where we get more complaints about variability, right? What I hear all the time is, first off, I'm very unique, and every month is different for me, and you know, I can't predict anything in my spending, you know, and I'll tell you, like last month it was all about stuff for the baby, and this month we had some car breakdown and I had some unexpected medical expenses, and next month we got our annual road trip to the family reunion. There's no month that's the same. And within the month, there's no week that's the same, and there's no day that's the same. So really, please don't waste my time, blah, 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 blah. Listen, that's all 100% legitimate. That is life. That's how life works, that's how life is, and we're not going to do any good in denying that. And that's a problem with some budget systems. Right? Our system has to gracefully accommodate that variability, all right? And it does, and I'll show you how. The first thing we're going to do, we're going to focus on the routine bills, right? So this is the easy part. These are the bills that come in all the time that you need to pay, like rent, like internet service, loan payments. And you're going to start with all the bills that you have to pay every month. Look, do you need to sit there and think, am I going to pay the rent? No, you're going to pay the rent, and you know how much it is. So all of these, you know you're going to pay these. You pretty well know how much they are. Okay, you might have a utility bill that varies in some range or whatever, right? But we pretty much know what all that stuff is going to be. And what the concept here is, we're going to draw out that amount of money to cover those bills right off the top from our reservoir. Just assume it's all gone. I mean, it's not all gone, physically all gone, but mentally it's all gone. Just draw it off the top. Furthermore, you've got bills that come in on a non-monthly schedule. So insurance premiums that maybe are annual or every 6 months, whatever. All you got to do is divide those into a standard monthly expense and treat those the same way. So every month you're going to pull the money out for it. You're not going to spend it. You're just going to hold it until the bill actually hits, and then the money is there and you can cover it. So you smoothed all that out, right? So all of these fixed expenses are handled. Now you set yourself up to implement a bit of magic, and that is, because you know what you're going to spend and you know that you've got the money there, you can automate that. You can automate all of those bills. And when I say automate, what I mean is, charge it to a credit card, or put it on a debit card, or have the vendor pull the money out of your checking account, or in the worst case, you schedule a payment with your bill pay on your bank. But point is, you can automate all that out. You don't need to relitigate this every month. Just automate it out, because you know it's going to be there. Okay. Now, as I said, that was the easy stuff. You know the schedule for those things. Okay, now let's talk about the random stuff that gives us so much trouble. These unplanned, quote, unplanned expenses, medical bills coming in, car breakdown, etc. You're going to need to accommodate those, and it's highly variable. You don't know, you know you're going to have a bunch of that stuff, but you don't know what it's going to be, you don't know how much it's going to be, and you don't know when it's going to hit. So it's a pretty radical variable problem. Fortunately, we do have a mechanism for dealing with variable stuff. It's that reservoir thing, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to draw down, we're going to create a buffer account. So in a savings account, have a savings account, we're going to call it your buffer fund, if you will, and you're going to draw a fixed amount out and put it in the buffer. And you might actually prime the thing by having saved up and put more money in the buffer to start with. But then the idea is that's a pile of money that's sitting there, and that's for all those unexpected expenses. So when the doctor hits you with a bill that you've got to pay, you just go pull the money out of the account and chuck it back into checking so that it's there, and then you pay the bill. In my case, I just charge it on a credit card. I don't want to pay 25 bills. I charge them to one card, so I pay one bill. But the point is, you reserve the money as it comes in. So it's sitting there in savings. This is it's in a reservoir. It's just waiting, and it says, oh, I got that bill. I draw out the money I need so that I can cover that. Put it in checking. So that just totally removes the huge, really tough variability that's in everybody's budgets. And so this building a buffer account thing is like really fundamental to making it all work. And it helps you avoid the scramble. You don't have to scramble to find the money, because you know where the money is. It's right there in that buffer account. And you're not robbing some other funds that you had earmarked for something else, and therefore causing another scramble down the line. All of that goes away. All of the nonsense goes away. That's the idea. Okay, so now, up till now, we're being very model citizens. We're making sure that all of our creditors are getting paid in full and on time. That's what those first two things were all about. Now, there's one more creditor I want you to take care of, and that's your future self. You're going to want to pull out proactively all the money you're going to use for long-term investing. So this is things for, obviously, for retirement accounts, healthcare savings, for starting a business, maybe college savings, all of that stuff. But you're going to make those investment contributions, and you're going to treat them just like this buffer. You're going to pull that money out right up front and put it in there. It's a whole separate topic as to why you should do this, but I'm going to tell you, my number is 20%. You should pull 20% of your gross into this. And most people can't come close to swinging that. That's okay. So pull out what you can and build it over time. Put yourself on get intentional and figure out how to build that up over time. But 20% is the target. That's not just retirement. That includes college. That includes healthcare savings, right? But 20%. And, you know, if in the end you pulled too much out, well, then you retire with too much money. You have to deal with it. Okay. So now, all the money, now with everything that's left in your reservoir is yours, free to spend. And you've taken care of all your obligations, including to your future self. The rest you can just spend any way you want. I'm not done, though. So before you go to the casino, there's a few more strategies you're going to want to use to get the most life out of those dollars, and make sure you don't come up short at the end of the month. One thing you're going to want to do is save up for big purchases. right? So you want to save up for vacations or for golf clubs or for a new car or down payment on a house. You know, the idea here, of course, is save up the money instead of putting it on a credit card and then paying that off over time with interest. Save ahead instead. And the best way to do that is to build a priority list of things that you and your partner are saving for, and talk about that and agree to that. And then when somebody thinks of something new that you want to spend money on, pull out the priority list and sit down and figure out, right, where does it fit on here? Where are we going to put it? And then as you have enough money in the savings account, you can start buying stuff off the list, right? And then you might change over time. You might decide to change how much you're going to put in there. But you're accommodating, you're taking care of yourself more in the medium term. Think of this as taking care of your medium term standard of living, all right? And again, the thing is, the amount of money you're going to put in all of those is a fixed amount every month. Since it's a fixed amount, and since you know you've reserved it in your checking account, automate it. So all your contributions to savings and investments should be automated. Okay? That way you're not relitigating it. That's why you're not coming up at the end of the month, gee, I wish I'd saved something this month. No, that's dumb. Automate it, it just happens without thinking. Okay? Now what we're left with is just the discretionary funds that we're going to spend throughout the month. So here again, same idea. I'm going to pull a fixed amount of money out and put it into a bucket called discretionary funds. There's just a little bit of money left in the checking account. That's just a little buffer you might put in there. Keep a few hundred extra bucks in there in case something happens you need to smooth it out. But all the money now is in your discretionary funds, and this is your this is money that you're going to be spending on things like groceries, eating out, entertainment, transportation. People will blast me and say, that's not discretionary. We need food. That's a necessity. I guarantee you, the amount of money you spend on food versus what you actually need is quite different. Food is discretionary. All of this is discretionary. There are alternatives to everything. Doesn't mean that they're palatable. There are alternatives. So this is another way to look at this. This is your day-to-day lifestyle. This is how you figure, okay, this is how you like to spend your money. So to deal with this, the first thing you're going to want to do is you are going to want to think about this a bit and come up with about a half a dozen categories. So here's some category candidates there, and actually try putting a number to them. Now, don't worry, you're never going to be held to the number. It's just a planning number. It's just a way to get a sense of how things are working and being intentional about, relative to how you're going to do your spending. One thing you're going to want to do when you do that, though, is you're going to want to include some money for personal, no guilt spending. So you don't have to check in with your partner when you spend the money. You don't have to tell them you spent it. You don't have to tell them what it is. It's yours. That gives you personal autonomy, and it minimizes kind of irritating, nonsensical conflict between the two of you, right? So always have that as part of your half dozen or so categories. Now, here's the deal with this. You can totally vary this. It doesn't matter what number you put in, because at the end of the month, it doesn't matter. You spend it on whatever you want. If this month it's all about ice cream, Snickers bars, and next month we're going to be on health food, it doesn't matter. It's whatever works for you in the moment, right? The one rule you cannot violate, though, is you've only got so much money. It's a fixed amount of money you're going to spend every month. So the one thing you do have to do is you have to keep track of how much are you spending. This is hard for busy people. It's a real problem. And I'll tell you what does not work is everybody's going to go around and record every transaction as they spend money. That's ridiculous. People aren't going to do it. And you're not going to sit there every night and tally up how much money you spent for the week or even for the day. I mean, it's just not going to happen. But what does seem to work is using a combination of cash, credit or debit card, and maybe an app to keep track of it. So let me explain how this works. Say you're gonna spend $400 a month on groceries, and you decided you're gonna manage that by just using cash. All right, so on the first of the month, you pull $400 cash out of the checking account, and you got that ahead. You stuff it in an envelope marked groceries, and that's the money you use every time you go to the store. Then it's really easy to know how much you got left to spend. It's like the old days. You actually knew how much money you had in your pocket, right? So it's a great way to manage your spending. The problem with cash is it's deeply inconvenient in our modern world. And I'll tell you, when I go to the gas station, I'm not going in to pay cash. I'm just going to pay with card at the pump and get on my way. That's okay. Take one or two cards, credit or debit, and dedicate them to this stuff, to this discretionary stuff. Then it's pretty straightforward to find out what you've been spending, because it's all there on the card. And we have online access to these cards, but even better, you can use a free app like Mint, connect it to your card, and on your phone you can carry around with you a brief little summary of what you've spent so far in the month, how much you got left to spend, by category, and most importantly, by total. So it's really simple. Now, of course, there's a couple days delay between when transactions hit and when they appear, but in practice, that hasn't really proven to be a big problem. And if you leave a few $100 in the checking account, you can smooth your way through that stuff. So generally that's not an issue. So this enables you, yes?
What was the name of the app you just mentioned?
Mint, M-I-N-T. There's others. It's the one that I know. It's free, so it's got two good things about going for it.
Not to get into the weeds, do you tie a credit card to the budget app?
I do.
And then?
Yeah, so then as you use the credit card, Mint produces a real-time summary for you, available anytime, that says, here's how much you spent so far, and it categorizes them for you. Okay, you gotta spend a little bit of time training Mint to categorize properly, but once you've spun it up and it's working, you always know then what you've been spending. So if you don't connect it to your bank account, don't connect it to anything else, you're just connecting it to the cards that you're using for this. And you got a really simple thing that tells you where am I discretion. You don't need to track all that other stuff. All that stuff is automated. What are you tracking that for, right? This is what you got to track and manage. So we're honing down, well, what do you actually have to be concerned about every month, right? That's what we're really doing here.
I want to back Jim up on this. Mint is an outstanding app. It's by Intuit, the people that make TurboTax. So it's secured with the same bank grade security as TurboTax is. And if you use TurboTax, you can use the same login.
Yep. Okay. Now, the last piece of all of this, that is, you do need to do a little monthly review process, just to make sure the wheels are staying on, that everything's working right. And most importantly, to pay your credit cards. However, paying your credit cards should be zero problem, because the only charges you put on a credit card is either something associated with this discretionary spending, or it was something else, that you covered with a buffer or one of the other savings accounts, and you pulled the money out and you put it in checking. So when you go to make that credit card payment, all the money's there. I have one client who's got a system down so solid, he automates his credit card payment as well. I say, he's got a lot of guts, but he does that, and it's working for him. He's not blowing up, right? So that's how all of this stuff hangs together. Now, I've been saying a lot of words pretty fast. You might be feeling a little ripped off because this is supposed to be a simple system for busy professionals. Let me tell you that, and help you understand that all of the complicated stuff that I went through and most of the administrative work is one-off. It's setting this thing up. So you gotta go through all that work, and by the way, it's good work for you. You get intentional. You'll learn what the heck is going on, right? So it's good for you to go through that. But yeah, that's a lot of work. But once it's up and running, then we're really running with quite a simple system. That simple system starts with the fact that on day one of the month, your checking account is full of cash. All the cash you're gonna need to run your month. And then a fixed amount of dollars are going to come off the top of that cash, and they're going to be pulled out by all the automated routine payments of all your routine bills. You don't do anything. It's all automated. The money was already there, you just pulled it out. I'm just telling you it went on in background. The other thing you don't do anything about is the fact that all of your savings and investment contributions were likewise automated. So again, a fixed amount of money is coming out, and it's all automated. You don't have to do anything with it. The only time you have to do anything with savings and investments, other than talk to your financial planner about how you're investing, but that's not a monthly cash flow issue. The only thing you've got to do is as you spend against those savings accounts, be sure you move the money out of savings into checking so that when the bill hits, the money's there. Right? That's the only thing you got to do. But you know what? That's a future-oriented action. That's a proactive activity, right? We're not reacting so much anymore. And then finally, a fixed amount of money is available to you in discretionary spending, and here's where you actually do your management work during the month. And you're going to make sure that you manage that total level of spending. And you can mix it all up in between how you do it. And you can use either cash to pay as you go, or 1 or 2 credit cards or debit cards to consolidate all your payments. So you don't actually have a whole lot of payments to make anyway in all of that stuff. Okay? So, and what
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
So I've got 2 kids in college, and
Yes.
they're about ready to get their first credit cards.
Yeah.
To build their credit history,
Yes.
is it better to use credit cards to pay for regular bills?
Yes, it is.
Cash.
No, it's better to use credit card. You know, I mean, unless they go nuts, right? But if they
Well, there's going to be limits, and I'm not.
absolutely. No, it's much better for building a credit history is if they actually use a credit card. And an easy way to build a credit history is use it on routine expenses you know you're going to pay anyway. And you know you've got the money to pay for. That's pretty low risk. The risk, of course, is they look at that as a ATM.
Right.
So, different issue to manage, right? This whole system that I went through with you is not a budget. It's a flexible spending plan. Not a budget, it's a flexible spending plan. It's going to totally transform your experience with your monthly cash management. Because, look, here's the old way. It can get pretty intense as you are trying to react to the flow of events and figure out where you are and figure out what you can spend. It gets intense, gets stressful. This is the new way. And with the new way, we've simplified and smoothed out the cash flows so that we could automate all of the routine stuff, take all of that work off of our hands, take all that worry and cognitive load off of us, okay? And then we're focused on, yeah, we got to manage this month's stuff on our discretionary side, but most of our management and thinking, we're thinking about what should I add to the big purchases priority list and that kind of thing. We're future oriented, much more future oriented than being reactive to crises in this new process. Okay, finally, I'll just say, you of course don't have to implement that whole system in whole. In fact, most of the things I talked about all have good benefits just on a standalone basis. So it's not like you're all in or you're all out. You can start working on this incrementally. Obviously, when you got it all together, that's when you have the real power. So, I'm Jim Ames, and I help people figure out the cash flow system that works for them specifically, as well as get their heads wrapped around their financial aspirations and everything that's going on in their financial life. And I work with individuals, organizations, so if you'd like to talk to me about working with me in either capacity, or if you just want to debate me on what I said here today, please reach out to me. Thanks very much.
Thank you.